Alright, so we're here and we're going to work on a plate. So to make a plate, I've got a small chunk of clay to make a little cookie. I'm going to put the bat on top of that. And then I've got 6 pounds of clay right here. And so we'll get going first with this part. The cookie doesn't have to be perfectly centered, nor does it need to get all the air bubbles out. What you do want to happen is you want this cookie to be about as wide as those holes right there, but you can't go too wide. So I'm going to pull it out just a little bit more. The other thing you have to make sure of is that the clay on the outside is taller than the clay on the inside. Otherwise your bat is going to rock back and forth. So that last moment I just took my thumb and lifted the edge just a bit. So I think we're ready to go. Got to find my holes. Alright. There we go. And you might look at your bat and make sure that one side is, if there's one side that's kind of bent out, if you have like a flatter side, you could do that. This textured side is probably going to stick to the clay a little bit better. So I'm going to put that down. Alright, so we're set to go with this. I'm going to put my water over here. Alright, so 6 pounds of clay. I'm going to try to get this as much in the middle as possible before I get started. And I'm going to end up drawing this out almost the whole outside. So when you're working with this amount of clay, it's a little bit easier to press down with both hands to get it to stick on the wheel. And then I can go back to the karate chop method. So I'm pushing down, making sure that clay is really stuck on there. When you're working on a bat, sometimes if you're just pushing with one hand, the bat wants to kind of slip. So it can be really helpful to use 2 hands, so maybe one hand here like normal, and then use a hand on the other side to give you a kind of an equal squeeze. Again, if you get that volcano, you could always push that back down, make a nice rounded top, and then come back up again. I'm going to do that one more time. Make it nice and even. So I think we're looking pretty good there, unless if we've got air bubbles in here. And we'll figure that out right now. So I'm going to push down one more time. You can see with this amount of clay, it loves to kind of mushroom out at the top. So use your left hand, give it a little squeeze as you're coming down, just so that it doesn't go crazy. So far I don't feel any air bubbles, so that's a good thing. And I'm coming down pretty slow so I don't throw it off center. It's looking pretty good right now. Okay. So as far as making a plate, we want to go ahead and keep karate chopping down until we've got about the width that we want. You don't want to pull this thing open a lot. If its base is here and you pull it all the way out to the edge of the bat, it's going to want to flop down. You need this bottom part to support it, so we got to keep karate chopping down. So maybe just a little bit more. How wide do you want me to go?
As wide as the plate.
As wide as the bat? Right now we're at about probably between an inch thick here and about 3/4 inch thick on the outside. As you can see, we've taken up most of the bat. It's a little bit easier if you leave just a little bit of bat there. If you go all the way over, it makes it really hard to cut it off. So at this point I don't have any air bubbles. Things feel pretty good. My next step is getting this level. I'm going to open this up and pull it out. As I pull it out, I'm going to kind of bend my thumb. So I'm going to arch my thumb over that edge so it kind of keeps it down. If I just go in with a vertical thumb and then I open it, that wall's going to want to come up and up. I'm not going to go too far in. Remember, this is about an inch, and I would love for this plate to be about 3/4 inch thick. It's going to come out really heavy at first. So if you can't see this, my thumb is kind of both opening it but also pushing it back down so that it doesn't go too crazy. I'm still using 2 hands. Whenever it feels dry, you're going to have to get just a little bit more water. Okay. So as far as kind of flattening this plate and also compressing, I'm going to use this guy here, but we might alternate between that and just using our fingers or a sponge. So I'm going to start in the middle. If I go over on the left side, it's going to dig into the tool, so I don't want to do that. So I'm just pushing on the right side, starting out pretty gentle, mostly trying to level it out. You do have to be wary that if you push too hard in one area, it might end up doing kind of a bounce or a wave, which you don't want. So try not to conform to the clay. Try keeping your tool where you want it. It's starting to bounce just a little bit here, so instead of that wooden tool, maybe coming back here with the sponge and evening that out with my fingers. Again, each time you go over this, you're compressing it. Now you can see I've made it all the way to the edge of the bat, so I don't have anywhere else to really go. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress in. So I'm going to start on the outside. I'm going to push down as I go in. If you don't compress a lot, your plate's going to end up cracking. So as I go about this, it's leveling it out, but again, it's also compressing it. And I would say that I'm pushing down with kind of medium pressure. It's definitely not a light pressure, but it's also, I'm not pushing so hard it's leaving a big dent. But it's definitely moving the clay a little bit. So at this point, it's kind of just feeling the clay, seeing where it's level, where it's not. There's a little bump here, so I'm going to kind of even that out. Go either way with it. And then at this point, let's see if you can see it, but there's still a little bit of a wave there. So I can go back with my wooden stick tool and see if I can fix that. I'm not going to press down much here. Just a little bit. You can see where my tool's left an indentation. I'm just going to leave that for now, and that will be part of my flange. All right. So that's a pretty smooth, pretty level plate. This last moment, I'm going to pick up the flange and then drop it back down. So I'm going to smooth that out just a little bit. But almost like a cylinder or a bowl, I'm going to pick up the outside here. I'm not really doing anything different than a cylinder. So my left hand's on the inside, my right hand's on the outside. Just picking it up. I'm going to go ahead and clean that edge up. So I'm just draping the sponge over the edge to make it really nice. Okay. And while this flange is up, it might be helpful. I'm eventually going to want a little bevel down here. So it might make sense to go ahead and do that now. Just going to open that up a little bit so I can get my stick tool in here. So just going slow and making a bevel there. So that's going to help once we have to cut this thing off to have this little rim there. I could also, if there's a lot of clay there, I could always do a little vertical push on it as well and kind of separate that clay, which we're used to doing with cylinders. So it's quite a bit of clay already that's gone. Takes a little bit of the weight out of it. But it's much easier to do this while the flange is up. Alright. So to finish it off, I'm going to support the outside of the flange with a sponge. So this is rolling through, and you can either do this just with your fingers. I like to use the wooden kind of half moon tool. So I'm supporting it with my right hand as I'm pushing down with my left. I'm going slow and sure. If you do this part too fast, you'll end up kind of warping your plate. Just a little bit more. There we go. Slowly taking out from that. At this point, and this is a rather large plate, if there's anything you need to clean up, so there's like a little kind of goop there, I would take and let it run just a little bit. And this is just kind of a final smoothing, making really nice even kind of rings or texture. And then as far as pulling your wire through, you've got that beveled edge. I know you can't see this in the video, but you want to find that edge. And this might be easiest to do without any splash pan. That's going to get in the way. And you can either do it with the wheel on or the wheel off. It's up to you. Whatever feels comfortable. And we're through. At this point, you want to take the bat off, but you don't want to manipulate the plate at all. So I like to use like the wooden stick tool, kind of wedge that under there, give it a twist or two, and then that piece is going to come off. Be really careful to make sure that these screw heads stayed in. If they come out, they'll end up pushing through your plate. So I don't know if you can see that, but probably about 3/4 of an inch. Oop, there we go. About 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Nice thick plate. It'll take a while to dry, but should be ready to trim after, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours without plastic. Great.